Welcome to Behind the Screen. I am JM, and this is a show where we talk about gaming. We talk about things that we love. We talk about things that inspire us to be better game masters, better players, if we can, better people. And we're in the middle of a series looking at science fiction as a genre, and we're talking about near future science fiction. If you want to know what that is, go check out the last episode of Behind the Screen or 2 episodes ago. It's hard to believe we're already on episode 76 today. Grom, good to see you. Padre and Mr. Bob Crumb, always good to have all of you in the chat. So today we're talking about mechanics, which is sort of a misleading title, right? We're looking at games. Haha, Rook! Good to see you, my friend. We're talking about games that replicate or try to replicate this near future science fiction feel. And honestly, what I discovered as I was doing my research on this is, well, there's a lot of games that cover this field. Most of them don't have very unique mechanics. They have unique mechanics to the game, but nothing that I would say really kind of nails that near future feel. Because near future science fiction is so close to our own that we only have one or two deviation points. It's really about being in that liminal space between where we are and where we hope to be. And so most good near science fiction provides solid rules for playing even in our time, or even a time just a little bit ahead of this. But I came up with some good games, and we're going to talk about things that I think mechanically make the games feel unique. So one thing that I want to talk about is, and we keep coming back to this, right? Time and space, the feeling, the pacing. In space opera, which we're going to get into next, time and space have very little meaning, right? We get there at the speed of plot, to quote J. Michael Straczynski. When he was asked, how fast does a Star Fury fly? He's like, oh, well, they move at the speed of plot. If I need them to be there now, they're there now. If I need them to barely make it in time, they barely make it in time. I'm not concerned with speeds. But near future science fiction needs that sense. Because what we have there is this idea that what has changed for us is not as fantastical as maybe we hope it will be sometime. Now, there's one specific show and game that I'm going to talk about that violates this, but I think it's the exception that proves the rule. Right? Alien, when they wake up from cold sleep, there's this sense, well, what time is it? Are we getting messages from Earth? How much time has passed? And I think messages are a great way to explain to your players how much time is passing while they're journeying. If your players give you a couple of NPCs, we'll talk about this in replicating the experience, find a way to use those NPCs to explain the time difference, right? In near future science fiction, when we go off on generational ships, these are people who will never see their friends and family again. When you go off on a mission for Weyland-Yutani, you're very rarely going to come back to an Earth that was the same place that you left. Flip side of that is the need to track debt. I'm not a huge fan of the Star Wars narrative dice system. Hey, John, good to see you. But one thing that I loved about their Edge of the Empire game was how everyone started with debt. It's an immediate impetus that you are going to have something that you need to do. This is a great mechanic if it's actually implemented in the game. Yes, John, survival. Survival in near future kind of reminds us how hostile space and foreign planets are. And I think we rarely deal with that in space opera or science fantasy. This is the point where if you want space to be more horrific, this is where you're going to go. Another series that we didn't talk about in near future is Another Life. And Another Life is on Netflix, 2 seasons. It too has this feeling of we have just enough technology to achieve faster than light. But every planet we go to completely destroys us because space is so hostile. So if we can use debt as a mechanic and find a way to reinforce, there's a couple of games that do that well. The Star Wars Edge of the Empire game does it great. Traveler is another game where, as you're rolling up your characters, if you use the life path system, you're going to end up with debt, whether it's your ship, whether it's your leg that things got replaced, whether it's any of these things. You start the game under the gun. If you think about Firefly, the core tension of the show is, do we have enough money to keep ourselves fed and equipped? The thing's always breaking down, but if the mechanic can just keep it jury-rigged, we don't have to replace it now. Do we have enough money for gas? This is something that near sci-fi allows us to really get into. The fact that we have not gone post-scarcity. So for us, we have this great touchstone of something very real to us, right? Where is our next, how are we living? Where is our next paycheck? Where is our next payoff coming from? And it keeps the game hungry. And yes, Padre, I totally agree. Star Wars is really more space fantasy, and we'll get into that. I just like that debt mechanic. I think that is possibly the best thing from the Star Wars narrative dice role-playing game. The other thing that we really want to do is keep technology. We need technology to be here, but a little bit, more in the future. So things like caseless ammo, maybe large lasers, but only on starships. We want the technology to feel, again, I think near sci-fi is very hard to capture on a technology scale because the goal of it is to always just be not over the horizon, but just on this side of the horizon. Like we can see where it's going from here. So and the other thing is mechanically, you want something that binds the group together, whether it's being a crew, whether it's being a group of Marines, whether it's being miners on an alien ship. I think that is the goal. Like we want it small. We want the colonies to feel like being out on the edge. But yes, Padre, yeah, the idea that Han Solo is in debt and his ship is breaking down. This is something that I feel like is possibly one of the most compelling things about Star Wars. And John, I agree with you. I played the narrative dice system when it was Warhammer, and I know Jay. I've met him several times. I love him as a game designer. I just don't feel like the narrative dice system and I have a buddy, Calvin, who adores the narrative dice system. It just doesn't do anything for me. I don't see how it's any better of a resolution mechanic than roll a single die or a pool of dice and immediately get a result. There's a lot of interpreting there, and some people love it. And if you love it, Calvin, more power to you. So, what are some great near future games? Well, we talked about Deadlands Lost Colony. If you haven't played it, stop what you're doing now and go grab what you can of Lost Colony. It's great. I love it. Padre, I now when we get to space fantasy, I promise you we'll go more in depth with this. But yes, the WEG D6 system was my first Star Wars game that I ran, and a buddy of mine at church gifted me all of the WEG books because he was getting out of it and I was getting into it, and he was trying to guide me away from Dungeons and Dragons. I didn't care. Tatooine Manhunt is still one of the best adventures in my mind. I've run that module so many times and then just converted it to multiple different games because you can really strip out the science fiction elements of it. You get a great adventure. Okay, so trying to stay as near future as I can. Here are some games that really stood out. These Serenity Firefly games. Again, not a huge fan of the Cortex system, but man, Bob and I played in a great Serenity RPG. We played, my wife, it was her first role-playing game. She played the companion. Bob was our gun bunny. Chris played, and he was our captain. He pistol whipped Bob and basically caused a mutiny. Great time. Had a lot of fun. There was just enough mechanics there to get us from mission to mission to mission. 2300 and also Twilight 2000. Those are both great near futures. They both stray a little bit more into the military science fiction, which is fine. Like military sci-fi is a brilliant place to set near future sci-fi. You get Space Marines, you get Not like Space Marines, but you get Marines in space, I should say. That's a slightly different um, path. When we get to, I feel like 40K is going to need its own genre. Yes, thanks, Rook. Starship Troopers is where I was going for. Now, the Alien role-playing game does a great job of laying a foundation for the near future science fiction, but I think its mechanics are far more focused on survival horror, which it does just brilliantly. And the other one that I really like is The Expanse. Now, again, The Expanse is very much tooled specifically to replicate The Expanse books and show, which is not a bad thing, because I would say that The Expanse is one of the best examples of near future science fiction. Acceleration couches, the drugs that allow you to possibly survive stroking out, the fact that missiles are the best technology because they can fly faster than a human can survive the G's on. The fact that you have asteroids that have been hollowed out as the whole Belter Society, Mars focused on terraforming. These are the core elements in my mind of near future science fiction. And the age system is surprisingly robust and enjoyable to run and to read. Green Ronin did a great job with that game. If you haven't played it, I recommend checking it out, whether you like Dragon Age, whether you like science fiction or fantasy age, modern age. They've got a plethora of books to play in that genre. Ooh, you know what? Gundam is also a good anime example of near future, depending on when you're looking at it. Also, for me, I never got into Gundam, but I was a huge fan of Macross and Robotech. I came to that through Rifts, through Palladium. Palladium had their Robotech books, and I picked them up and read them, and then came to the anime from there. So these are games that I think really exemplify it, right? Twilight 2000 is going to give you near future, almost post-apocalyptic war stories. 2300 is going to give you that kind of first step out. Battletech, especially like if you're setting something in like the Star League, or I feel like even though Battletech has a little bit more space opera elements, there's some feel of near future. Like you can see where we would get to from there. The Expanse. Heck, Traveler is far more hard sci-fi, but again, there's a lot of these elements in here, and I think near future is a very liminal space, because don't want to spoil it for anyone, although it's been done for several years now, but I'll just say, even The Expanse takes us from near future into a space opera style setting towards the end of its run, either in the novels or in the TV show. So if you haven't watched that, gonna just let that be. So it's interesting to try and keep it tight in a near future state, because again, like I said, it's a liminal space. It's a space of transition. It can be a very hard game to capture mechanically, because it's basically us just a little bit further out. So I realize that this might have been our most nebulous view. We're going to talk about a lot of ways on how to really sync this. I think there's some great ways to lean into the liminal space of near future science fiction. I think there's a great way to really stress these moments of time and space and danger. I think that's one of the other things, as John said, the survival aspect really comes out in near future, because you never know what you're going to find. Is that safe to eat? What's growing? What kind of microbes are on this planet? Will this technology work the way it's supposed to? Can we keep it running between this planet and the next one? These are kind of the things. And again, Firefly brings these elements to the fore, right? A train job. How Bowden's disease sprung up on this planet because the mines are just a perfect mix that no one even knew existed. Terraforming is a thing. Terraforming is another big component of near future sci-fi. How do we, in our exploration, some would say hubris, reshape a planet to make it habitable for humanity? And what's the problems that arise from that. So John said another Savage World setting offering the After is based on Earth just after an extinction event, and those who remember have access to new and interesting technology. Yes, I love how we keep coming back to Suede on this show. Speaking of, I do want to get another Rifts game on. So if you are watching this and you were a member of the past Rifts game, know that I will be talking with all of you here in the near future to get that on the calendar. Yes, I appreciate that. We did talk about Modern Age and had to bring that back. So, we're gonna wrap this up here. This was our behind the screen. I'm just gonna make a couple of announcements. Tuesday, we're going to do a big announcement show on behind the screen. So we're gonna finish up this series next Thursday. We're also going to be bringing our Torg game on Tuesday nights. Next session will be the last session of Torg. The FET 5 for the year. Big cliffhanger. I know it's only November, and you're like, JM, why are we doing this? Well, several reasons. One, I'm going to be running on Tuesday nights a 3-week show of Space 1889 after Victorian science fiction, steampunk adventuring. And then we're going to do a Christmas episode early in December, and I wanted to put this out to you guys. If we're going to do a show where we sit back, we relax, we have some holiday beverages, and we're going to share with the FET 5 kind of our favorite stories from gaming. And I would love to have, if you guys would like to, as members of the viewers of the show or people who are members of the patronage, if you would like to record no longer than 2 minutes, and by doing so you give us, permission to use this, we would like to, as part of our stream, have you guys share your holiday stories. Not your holiday stories, your favorite role-playing moments. If you can keep it to 2 minutes, just, hey, here was the setup, here's why I enjoyed it. We're going to, you can offer write-ins as well, and I will be glad to read those on stream. So, we will be doing that tonight, in 4 weeks on Tuesday. Also tonight, if you're at all interested, I'm going to be doing an interview on the Discord channel. I'll put the link on our channel. There's a Discord channel that does interviews with role-playing game designers and promotion of new games. I'm going to be on there for about 2 hours tonight talking about Space 1889 after. So if you guys would interested, I may even be able to show the preview launch page for the Kickstarter. If you're at all interested, let's join me there tonight. I know Restar's on there. Good to see you, Restart. So that brings us to the end of this behind the screen. And yes, Daryl Hayhurst wrote this edition of the game. I'm going to be talking it up, and we're going to get to show it off on stream in 2 weeks on Tuesday. So until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, stay gaming. I am JM. This has been Behind the Screen, and I will see you all on Tuesday. Have a good one.